difficult for me, but then I'll try, considering the fact that I'm basically from Hyderabad. So आपको पता है हैदराबाद में हिंदी कैसी बोली जाती है. So I would request you to please bear with me in case there are certain linguistic issues, but otherwise I'll try and do my best. As far as audit is concerned, I think my association with audit began much before I joined the education industry. I'm basically from the retail sector. I have an industry academia experience spanning 20 years. After the retail industry, I've also worked with the banking sector, and audit is somehow synonymous with banks as well. So I worked extensively in the audit team in branch banking as well. Probably because of that, I had a meticulous way of working with documentation, and probably because of that, I was given the responsibility of audit here in Christ MPBOU University as well. So when we were becoming an off-campus here in Delhi NCR, I was full-fledged involved in the documentation work, and from there, the interest in this aspect grew. Now, I believe there is a problem with my video. Yeah. As far as audit is concerned, be it in the banking sector or in the education sector, one thing that I have understood is that ultimately we are doing it because we want to protect the interest of stakeholders. In the bank, if audit is happening, it's because we are dealing with somebody else's money, and we don't want to fool around with that money. In an education institution, if we are dealing with audit, it's primarily because यहाँ बच्चों के जिंदगी का सवाल है. We are accountable, or we are responsible for what we do in a university, such that our students, who are our primary stakeholders, should not suffer. And that is wherein I think constant quality improvement is possible through audit. But problem ये है ना कि जैसे ही audit की बात आती है, तो सबसे पहला emotion जो मन में आता है वो है fear. जब बैंक में थी तब भी
Sorry to interrupt you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry to interrupt you, ma'am. Your voice is not very clear. It's flickering. So please see to it.
All right. Let me just maybe adjust something over here. Just give me a moment. Am I audible now, ma'am? Is it better?
Yes, ma'am, it's better.
So, जैसे मैं बता रही थी, audit नाम सुनते ही हम सबके जहन में एक ही बात आती है, वो है डर. Fear. I remember the fear that as branch employees we all had when we were contemplating audit, and I see that the situation is no different in educational institutions as well, wherein when we think of audit, it is largely fear. But if we actually reflect, audit is not meant to instill fear, and I'm sure if there are any professors of OB here, they'll agree with me that punishment never works. It is only reinforcement, and audit is supposed to be a measure of reinforcement to ensure that people work continuously on improving quality aspects in the educational institutions to provide better outcome for our students. So keeping that perspective in mind, somewhere I think overall we need to maybe reflect on the way audit happens and how this whole process is taken up by both the authorities who look into it and by the management as well. But I'm too small a person to get into that aspect right now. So what I'll do is, without wasting any further time, I'll quickly dip into Criteria-6. Can I request the organizers to please permit me to share my screen? Can I go ahead?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. So is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am. It is visible.
Presentation.
अपनी स्लाइड चलाएंगे तो बोलते हैं.
This is an overview of the metrics of the entire NAAC criteria, as you all are aware, and I'm not going too much into the details over here because my understanding is that we all already know what this is because you've already attended these many sessions so far. there are 7 criteria. There are 34 key indicators all put together under these 7 criteria. And then we have qualitative metrics, metrics which we tend to provide information about through descriptive measures. And then we have quantitative metrics for which we have to provide data as a university or as an institute or a college to the authorities for these indicators. And I would be focusing on criteria 6, which has a weightage of 100 points. It has 5 key indicators, and the total number of metrics is 16, out of which qualitative metrics are 10 and quantitative metrics are 6. Now, when you look at the weightage of criteria 6 in comparison to what we have in terms of the total weightage, I believe we all know it is around 1,000. Now, out of that 1,000, this weightage for criteria 6 is only 100. So the automatic understanding might be that this is not really that very important because the first 3 criteria have more weightages compared to the remaining ones that comes after it. But to be honest, if we think about it, ये जो criteria 6 है, यही है जो बाकी सबको drive करता है. ये जो 10% आपका वेटेज है, ये 10% वेटेज ही है जो बाकी सब चीजों की क्वालिटी को अश्योर करेगा. बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में, इन एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, व्हाट मैटर्स इज लीडरशिप. What matters is the vision that that leadership has, and if the leader is not right.
Excuse me, ma'am. Sorry
Yes.
to interrupt you at this point. Are you sharing some slides or it's not visible?
It is
Are
not.
there some PPTs in your? Are there some PPTs you are sharing?
I'm sharing my screen.
Screen sharing is not there.
It is
Your
not.
PPT is not there.
Okay. Let me
No,
try that
your
again.
PPTs are not visible, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Let me try that again. Is it
You
visible
just
now?
try once more, please. It's not there. Let me confirm from the participants. प्रतिभागी में से कोई बताएं कि क्या उनको स्लाइड्स दिख रहे हैं क्या?
Visible, visible. हाँ, visible.
Okay, okay, okay. Chat box में आ गया है. It's okay, ma'am. You please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. To be completely honest with you, Zoom is a platform that we have not explored much at Christ for whatever reasons. We generally use WebEx and Google Meet. So in case there are such technical issues, I would request you to just bear with me. So if I may proceed, as I was saying, वैसे दिखने में लगता है कि criteria 6 में 100 ही points है और ऐसा कुछ शायद it's not that very important when compared to the others. Obviously, if it is a key indicator, then it is important. But the point is, all the other indicators, I personally believe, are driven by this particular criteria. Because आपकी curriculum कैसे develop होगा, आपकी student progression कैसे चलेगा, आप research में कितना काम करोगे, all these aspects are आपके best practices क्या होंगे institutional level पे, all these things are driven by your leader. What is the vision and the mission that your leader has set for the university, and वहीं से आपका culture develop होगा. So it sets the culture and it sets the tone, जिसके वजह से बाकी सब चीजें हो जाएंगी. If you don't do this, that will not happen. So this, I think, is the key criteria which will drive all other criteria. And in that context, I feel criteria 6 is a very important criteria. Now, as we were saying, there are 5 indicators under criteria 6. The first one is about your institutional vision and leadership. So this criteria, इसमें हम बात करेंगे कि organization की vision क्या होनी चाहिए, mission क्या होनी चाहिए, because वहाँ से that will set the narrative कि वहाँ से आप क्या करोगे, आप चाहते क्या हो, what is the purpose of existence of your organization. इस चीज का definition आप यहाँ दोगे in your vision and mission statement. From there, we move on to the second important criteria, which is strategy development and deployment. इसको हम दो हिस्से में बांटेंगे. One is strategy development. Strategy is your plan. Normally what happens in universities is we are all indulged in firefighting. आज कुछ हो गया, उसको वहाँ पे आग बुझाना है, उसके बाद कहीं और आग लगेगा, उसको बुझाना है, उसके बाद कुछ और. So we are all involved in firefighting. हम लोग pause करके we are unable to think कि what are the changes happening outside and in what way do we need to plan ahead for the future. So this criteria forces the top management and people below to think ahead and come up with strategic plans. So you need to come up with a strategic developmental plan, which is basically a 5-year plan for the future, and then have details as to how you will implement those plans. That is criteria 6.2. And then we have faculty empowerment strategies. Faculty empowerment strategies is all about your key resource in the organization, which is your human resource. You have set up a vision, a mission. Then based on that, you have developed long-term plans, but you need people to implement those plans, and you need the right kind of resources, faculty who will be the pillar of your university, and you need to empower them. You need to strengthen them. So what is it that a university can do to strengthen their people? The fourth criteria indicator over here is financial management and resource mobilization. Vision है, long-term plan है, आपका strategy है, लोग भी है, लेकिन if you have to implement it, पैसे भी चाहिए, right? We need money as well. So where will this money come from? And how am I going to account for it? How will I take decisions related to these money matters? How am I going to mobilize? How am I going to bring in money? And then how am I going to manage money? How am I going to account for that money? These are important questions that we'll answer using 6.4. And the final criteria, 6.5, is all about IQAC. Internally, within your organization, how does your IQAC system work? Internal quality assurance system work? What all measures do you have in place, right? So this is captured, or this is measured using the fifth point, which is internal quality assurance system. Now let's look at each one of these. I've mentioned against each of those points what is the individual weightage for each of these indicators, right? Now, when we look at the metrics under 6.1 indicator, which is institutional vision and mission, right? The first one is the governance of the institution is reflective of an effective leadership in tune with the vision and mission of the institution. इसका मतलब ये है कि आपकी जो लीडरशिप है और आप जिस तरीके से अपनी यूनिवर्सिटी चला रहे हो, it is truly reflective. आप बिल्कुल अपने विजन और मिशन को ही मद्देनजर रख के आप उसी तरीके से आप उसको चला रहे हो, अपने यूनिवर्सिटी को चला रहे हो. You are, the leadership is managing the university, keeping the vision and mission itself in mind. And the second aspect is, in a much broader sense, when we talk of governance, is everything centralized at the top? Are all the decisions being taken at the top, or is the decision-making power decentralized? Are you involving various stakeholders in your important decisions? This is the second criteria, a second metric under this particular criteria. Now, this is a qualitative metric. So basically, we try to capture this using descriptive statements. We are asked to describe this in less than 500 words. But what do? We describe the vision and mission, and then how we are using it in the university. Now, I think it is but appropriate that I speak of my university that I'm currently associated with Christ. अब Christ में हमारी जो vision statement है, हर बच्चे के जुबान पे है. You ask any student what is the vision, and immediately he will say excellence in service. उसके बाद शायद mission याद ना रहे या core values शायद याद ना रहे, but vision जरूर याद रहता है, because we have this even in our cafeteria in terms of posters here and there. We have it on our website. We have initial orientation session for our students wherein we drill this down. Even for faculty orientation, this is driven into our students' mind. But sir, and this vision was developed with the help of various stakeholders. हमारे बहुत सारे, चाहे वो alumni हो, चाहे वो industry हो, या student community हो, and vision cannot be something that is rigid or fixed for a very long period of time. There is no harm in re-looking at your vision and seeing कि क्या आज के डेट में given the change scenario ये vision सही है, या is there a need to maybe even change that. But largely vision statements tend to remain they are enduring statements. Now हमारे केस में excellence and service कहते हैं. Excellence जो भी आप करो, चाहे वो academic pursuits ho, curricular, extracurricular pursuits ho, you have to try and do it in the best possible manner. But in Christ, when we talk of our vision, हमारी जो purpose है, we feel कि जो बच्चा यहाँ से निकलेगा, वो सिर्फ 99% और A++ grade के साथ ना निकले, but वो एक society की तरफ sensitivity के साथ निकले. We want them to develop or imbibe in them that value that yes, I have to do well in whatever I do, but when I do that, I should be able to give back to the society. So service to the society is also an equally important component for us when it comes to our vision. So keeping that in mind, we have excellence and service as our vision statement. Now, अगर vision आपको ये clear करेगा कि आपकी existence का purpose क्या है, mission ये clarify करेगा कि आप उसको कैसे achieve करोगे, right? So in our case, in the case of Christ University, we say that our university is a nurturing ground for individual holistic development to make an effective contribution to society. तो हमारी mission statement ये है कि हम इस university के माहौल को ऐसे बनाएंगे कि वो एक nurturing ground बनेगा जहाँ पे एक student एक पौधे की तरह होगा जो हमें सौंपा जाएगा, जिसको हम nurture करेंगे with all the right nutrients and water and enough sunlight. And all of that is that academic, curricular, co-curricular activities that we'll bring in so that he grows, and even community-related activities so that he grows and he gives back to the society. This is what we hope to do, and this has to be articulated in your vision, mission statement, and your description that you give when you submit your NAAC documents. For example, we have said that हम ये कैसे sensitivity लाते हैं बच्चों में. अब यहाँ पे I would like to speak about 2 flagship programs of ours. हमारे यहाँ पे there is a program known as holistic education. Now holistic education is considered to be more important than any other course in the university. आप बाकी courses में fail भी हो जाओ तो ठीक है, लेकिन जब तक आप HED या holistic education clear नहीं करोगे, आप अगले semester में जाओगे नहीं. Now holistic education में हम अलग-अलग we try and cover a lot of different kinds of things. It is for example, last year, academic year, our focus in holistic education was on servant leadership. Okay, as an individual, how you need to be not an autocratic leader or even a democratic leader, but what the need of the hour is for more servant leaders. Or this academic year, we are focusing on SDG, Sustainable Developmental Goals. So again, the objective is to give back to the society. Sustainable Development Goals is all about protecting people, planet, and the environment. So how do we contribute towards that? So HED or HED sessions, holistic education sessions that we have, which is 1 hour in a week, that helps towards that, right? Every single student in Christ has to follow that. So, and then we have students from different countries, from different states. It's a potpourri of culture. So that also sensitizes students. They come face to face with different kinds of people and understand that it is okay to be different, right? And then we have an initiative wherein we have a Center for Social Action. Now, this Center for Social Action conducts various CSA activities. Last week, हमारी School of Business and Management की जो faculty or students है, we went on a community reach program. We went to a nearby slum area which is called Bombay Colony. वहाँ पे ज़्यादातर rat pickers रहते हैं, below poverty line and very poor people. And we, along in collaboration with a hospital in the locality, we set up a free medical camp. And वहाँ से वापस आने के बाद, some of our students had tears in their eyes, क्योंकि उन्होंने ऐसा कभी कुछ देखा ही नहीं. They come from a privileged background, some of them, and they had never seen something like this. So this is how we are trying to sensitize our students. And then our faculty, one of them, she told me, "Ma'am, I've never been to a place like this. ऐसे भी लोग जी सकते हैं." So it is not only about education for us, it is excellence and service, and that is done with these kind of activities. So I hope you're getting the point, and this is how we capture that information over here. Now, to give you another example, what I have done is, instead of just giving you points, I thought I'll bring in examples of actual work that has been done by universities so that we can implement on similar lines or maybe improvise on them in our own universities. I'm sure all of you are already doing enough and more, but we can all learn from each other. So this is a university in Maharashtra, in NAAC. Now, this provides technical education. To be more specific, it deals with engineering course, but their focus is on educating the rural students. So their catchment area is rural India, and that is their vision. And how do they do that? through their mission statement, that is by providing skill-based education. And then the description given below talks of all those facilities that they have in place and all those means that they have to provide that kind of उस तरीके का education. अगर rural India में जाके आपको engineering college चलाना है और वहाँ पे if you have to provide the best possible resources, it is not an easy thing. But they are doing it and they are doing it quite well. And they have documented it also. In fact, what I liked about these universities, I'm not taking names over here, but the reason, what I liked about these universities, it is not just about internal development, that is university ka development. They have initiated so many projects in collaboration with Tata Consultancy, with Maharashtra government, with a lot of other things, wherein they are trying to even develop the community around them. So that is a big thing that they are doing, and that gets captured in their vision and mission statement and the descriptive statement. Now, the second indicator or metric in this is the institutional practices related to decentralization and participative management. As I said in the beginning, हमारी यूनिवर्सिटीज कैसे चला रहे हैं हम चाहते हैं कि सारी डिसीजंस टॉप मैनेजमेंट ले और बस बाकी सब उसको इम्प्लीमेंट करे, या हम चाहते हैं कि हर स्टेक होल्डर जो एक इम्पॉर्टेंट स्टेक होल्डर है, चाहे वो स्टूडेंट हो, अलुमनाई हो, पेरेंट हो या टीचर हो, उसकी भी सुनी जाए. So this is what gets captured in 6.2, wherein we are supposed to describe, it's again a qualitative metric. They're supposed to describe how this is done, and again it's broken up into two parts. First part is how are you giving away authority and autonomy. जो डिसीजंस है आपकी यूनिवर्सिटी में वो आप कैसे अलाउ कर रहे हो कि और लोग उसको ले. ऐसा नहीं कि सिर्फ डीन लेगा या सिर्फ जो गवर्निंग बॉडी है वो डिसीजंस लेंगे और बाकी सब इम्प्लीमेंट किया जाएगा. अल्टीमेटली yes, to a certain extent the top management takes those decisions, but before taking those decisions, do they take feedback? Do they take suggestions? So that is related to participative management. And in certain cases, you have to give the freedom to the stakeholders to take certain decisions, like universities that provide seed money. वहाँ पे अगर आपको एक कॉन्फ्रेंस अटेंड करना है या कोई रिसर्च से रिलेटेड काम करना है तो आपको पहले परमिशन मांगना नहीं पड़ेगा, आपके पास सीड मनी है, आप उसमें से आप स्पेंड कर सकते हो. So that is the university's way of giving you authority and autonomy and saying you have the freedom to do, but ultimately you're accountable for the results. मुझे results चाहिए, right? So here we have to provide details about the administrative structure कि हमारी organization structure कैसा है, क्या system है, hierarchy क्या है, ऊपर at the top who do we have, and then right below them who do we have, what are each person's roles and responsibilities, right? Now how do we do this? For example, again in one of the universities over here in Christ, we have something known as a teaching and learning enhancement cell. अब इसमें जो एक फैकल्टी बिल्कुल नया है, उसको कोई एक्सपीरियंस नहीं है, just completed PhD and he has joined, we take that faculty also, and we take faculty who has 5 years 10 years experience, and we also have faculty who have 20-30 years experience, almost ready to retire, and we constitute this cell which looks into what are the practices that are there in the university right now in terms of teaching and learning, और इसको improve कैसे किया जा सकता है. ये दोनों चीजें देखती है ये टीचिंग लर्निंग सेल. तो आपने यहाँ पे क्या किया, आपने फैकल्टी को इन्वॉल्व किया टू गिव यू सजेशंस कि आपकी करिकुलम कैसे इम्प्रूव हो सकती है, आपका टीचिंग कैसे इम्प्रूव हो सकता है, एंड यू टेक दैट इंफॉर्मेशन एंड मे बी यस द टॉप मैनेजमेंट माइट टेक डिसीजंस, बट यू हैव अ सेल दैट विल प्रोवाइड यू इंफॉर्मेशन. In fact, the teaching learning enhancement cells provides very valuable information even to IQAs from time to time, right? We have a curriculum development cell. Now the curriculum development cell is constituted and it comes into picture every academic year once. They meet regularly and they meet in multiple times. They talk to alumni, they talk to the industry experts. So इस curriculum development cell में आपके industry experts भी है, पेरेंट्स भी है, टीचर्स भी है, स्टूडेंट्स भी है, इन सबसे फीडबैक दिया जाता है कि आपका व्हाट इज योर आइडिया अबाउट दिस करिकुलम. आपको लगता है कि कोई और नया कोर्स डेवलप करने की जरूरत है, या जो एग्जिस्टिंग कोर्स है उसको उसमें एडिशनल कंटेंट ऐड करने की जरूरत है. इनफैक्ट ऐसे ही एक करिकुलम डेवलपमेंट सेल के मीटिंग में जब हम बैठे थे और हमारी डिस्कशन हो रही थी, तो द आइडिया ऑफ स्टार्टिंग BBA फिनटेक केम अप, क्योंकि वहां पे जो एक इंडस्ट्री एक्सपर्ट बैठे थे उन्होंने ये फीडबैक दिया. दैट इज हाउ वी ब्रिज द गैप बिटवीन इंडस्ट्री एंड एकेडमिया. He gave us a feedback that fintech is where the future is going to be, and you have to get into that space before anybody else does. और हमने BBA fintech शुरू किया और MBA fintech as a specialization भी offer करना शुरू किया, because there will be a time when even the banks will be taken over probably by the fintech companies. So we need to be prepared for it. We need to develop a workforce that is ready to take on those challenges. तो ऐसे feedback, ऐसा जो mechanism है होने के लिए we need to listen to our important stakeholders, as I said, including the industry experts. So it is the responsibility of the top management, the leadership, to provide those avenues so that this happens, right? अब दूसरी एक यूनिवर्सिटी में they have something known as the academic monitoring committee. Academic monitoring committee का काम start to finish everything related to academics है. मतलब वो academic calendar बनाएगा कि इस semester में क्या होना है, क्या नहीं होना है. From that point till the point wherein it is implemented, they monitor every single step. And on that basis, they provide feedback to IQAC to tell them that, you know what, this needs improvement. आपका जो course plan है, उसमें आप clearly define नहीं कर रहे हो कि ये course पढ़ने से what is the outcome that is going to, come to the student. What outcome will the student derive out of it? It is not clear. So they provide this information, right? So that again, we are taking feedback from important stakeholders using this. The third. The 6.2, which is our second indicator, is about strategy development. तो पहले indicator में हमने बात कर ली कि हमारी vision क्या होगी, हमारी mission क्या होगी, हमारी leadership को वो they have to decide what is it, what do they think is the purpose of that particular institution, why is that institution existing, and how should it function. Up from that vision and mission statement, we get our strategy. अगर मुझे वो vision accomplish करना है, अगर मुझे वो mission accomplish करना है, then I need to have strategies in place. Strategies are long-term plans. जैसे मैं थोड़ी देर पहले कह रही थी, हमारे पास आज मुझे ये workshop करवाना है, कल मुझे कुछ और करवाना है, हम हमेशा आज में रहते हैं, and there are lots of things that keeps piling up, but then we need to think ahead. We need to be able to think of what might be the situation 5 years down the line, and that is where strategic planning comes into the picture. So under this indicator, the first metric is having an institutional strategic plan in place. Every organization, when I say organization, I'm referring to institutions over here, every university is expected to have a strategic plan in place. The second metric is plan to hai, अब उसको implement करने के लिए you need some institutional bodies, you have to have certain policies. So what are those institutional bodies and what are those policies? That is defined in 6.2. Plan hai, policies hai, but in order to get that thing effectively implemented in today's time, what is required is technology, and the technology aspect is covered in 6.2.3, which is all about e-governance. तो अगर मेरी प्लान ये है तो उसको इम्प्लीमेंट इस तरीके से करेंगे, बट उसको अच्छे तरीके से इम्प्लीमेंट करने के लिए मेरे पास ये सॉफ्टवेयर होना चाहिए. So this is what we are talking of in terms of what is going to be your strategy and how are you going to implement that strategy. This is what is covered in 6.2. Now let's deal with the first metric. Again, it's a qualitative metric, so we need to describe how the institution is going ahead with the strategic plan. Right now, this is again an example of a college in Mumbai which had these as the strategic plan. उसने कहा कि मुझे optimal use of resources करना है campus में, and NAAC wants you to upload information related only to one of the aspects. Right? Describe in 500 words any one successfully implemented activity based on the strategic plan. Now, the first one is optimal use of resources on campus, this particular college in Mumbai. The second plan that they had was upgradation of classroom infrastructure, enhancing inclusion on campus, introduction of a discipline-centric social involvement program, and cultivating wellness on campus. और इन्होंने जो अपना information share किया, I think my video is on for a toss again. Just give me a moment. Is it okay if I continue without the video? Because I don't know, for some strange reason, it is not working. Is it okay, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. It's okay.
Thank you. This is a problem with Zoom for me. It always happens.
Chat box में देखो।
Hoping it wouldn't happen. Anyways, when we talk of this particular college in Mumbai, इन्होंने क्या किया? इन्होंने अपना website में भी they have provided information about how they were able to achieve the strategic plan or how they implemented it, जैसे cultivating wellness on campus. वैसे तो काफी साल पहले से इनके पास छोटा सा एक wellness center था, but then they developed it in a full-fledged manner. I'm talking of St. Xavier's College over here, in fact. Right? इन्होंने if you go to their website, you have a link there for their wellness center. It offers a whole range of services, चाहे वो personal counseling हो. A student can go onto the website and click and register for a psychometric test. If I want to find out which area I'm more suited for, what my personality is, if I want to discover myself or know myself better, I can go and appear for these tests that is available there on their own website, which is provided for by the Wellness Center. They conduct various workshops, they provide training workshops, they have team development activities. They also have some cultural evenings, naach gana bhi chalta hai. Now, when I say Naach Gana, we might think what is the place for that in a university? But the point is, in fact, even recently, about a few days back, I happened to one of the faculty brought to me a case of a student who was extremely rude in the class and बहुत ही ज़्यादा misbehave किया उसने. Faculty was literally furious. The student was even more furious, and he was recommending that the student should immediately be rusticated. So when we sat down and we spoke to the student, we realized, along with the counselors, we have counselors over here, we realized that the student is suffering from panic and anxiety attack, and he has some mental issues, which in fact we called as parents, and when we discussed with his parents, we realized कि उसके parents को भी ये चीज पता है, वो जानबूझ के उसको छुपाने की कोशिश कर रहे थे, because हमारी society में mental health को लेकर के काफी stigma है. कोई नहीं कहना चाहेगा कि I need help. Nobody would want to go meet a counselor or a psychologist. And आज के डेट में जब जिस situation में जब है pandemic and all that, जहाँ बच्चे online घर में बैठ के अकेले they are attending to all these classes, they are more likely to suffer from these kind of mental problems. And this is a very good initiative. And the university came up with this initiative, and it is there. All those details are there in their website, and they have documented it also, which is a good thing, right? We also identified this, and we also have in our university, for example, we have counseling center. We also have a trained counselor, a clinical counselor who comes on a weekly basis. Twice a week, he comes to the campus, and students can approach him and seek consultation. At times, if we feel that certain cases are beyond help over here, we call their parents and ask them to be treated outside as well. So we are living in times when students are going through a lot of stress, and such programs and such support mechanisms are required in place. So basically, आप क्या करोगे? आप उसको you come up with some plans, and then you will show कि आपने उसको implement कैसे किया over a period of 5 years. Now, जो मैं नासिक के कॉलेज के बारे में बता रहे थे, महाराष्ट्र में, which is working on rural, students, the engineering college in rural India. If you look at them, if you look at their strategic plan, it's awe-inspiring. One of their plans was to set up a 100 kilowatt solar power plant, and they actually went ahead and did that, right? And they did that with support from the Maharashtra government and Tata Solar Limited. In collaboration with them, they set up this power plant in their university, and they were able to become self-sufficient in terms of energy consumption. With the help of their own students and the university's big time involvement in it. And this was one of their strategic plans. They achieved it, and they have it there on their website. So this is one other way. Now, moving on to the next metric, we said we have our plans in place. Now, who will get those plans implemented? उसके लिए आपके पास policies होने चाहिए. उसके लिए आपके पास एक administrative setup होना चाहिए, procedures होना चाहिए. तो ये सारे चीजें जहाँ पे capture होती है और measure होती है, वो ये वाली criteria है. Now, in this, one important way of doing it is having an organogram of the university, and this should be there on your web page. अब जैसे आप देख रहे हो, this is the organogram, basically the hierarchical structure, giving you details about who is the head of the institution and what are the various committees there. For example, if you see, there is a committee related to research, there is something related to student bodies, there's an IQAC committee, there's an academic council, there's CDC, there's academic board, a financial board. So all these things have to be defined very clearly. And then you also need to define who will do what. कई बार ये होता है कि faculty join कर लेता है, किसी को हम क्लास टीचर बना देते हैं, किसी को एकेडमिक कोऑर्डिनेटर बना देते हैं, किसी को कोई एचओडी भी बन जाता है, but then there is no clarity what is the expectation, right? So each person contributes, each one is a leader in himself, each body is contributing towards fulfillment of your ultimate objective, that is your strategic plan. What is each person's role and responsibilities, that has to be clearly defined. आप कहोगे कि कॉलेज गवर्निंग बॉडी में ये लोग हैं, चेयरमैन का ये रोल है, which is usually the head of the institution. The management representative's role is going to be this. University के representatives का role ये होने वाला है. आपको clearly define करना है कि इन roles में क्या responsibilities है, which will help them achieve ultimately your strategic plan, right? This is again a snapshot of a screen, that was of data that was submitted by one of the universities. Again, all of this is available on their respective websites itself. And this talks about what is the process, or what are the procedures for recruitment, what is the procedure for grievance redressal, what is the procedure for promotions, all this information, the organogram, right? Who is where, in what position, all those things are there on the website. And this is where basically we are telling, we have to be clear who are the people who will be responsible for implementing that strategic plan of the university and how it is going to happen. If you say that I need research to happen, I want my university to become a research centric university, and you need faculty, तो ये faculty recruitment process ऐसा होना चाहिए कि वाकई में जिन लोगों को रिसर्च की तरफ इंटरेस्ट है, सिर्फ आपको उन्हीं को लेना पड़ेगा. And how can you ensure that? So you have to have that kind of a process in place. The next indicator or metric that we'll be talking about, 6.2.3, is e-governance. Now, as I said, आपके पास plan है, आपके पास लोग या bodies है, roles and responsibilities clarify कर लिया, but then when there is so much of data, and what people in the top management, चाहे वो एक organization में हो, these days we are talking of big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, algorithms and whatnot. है क्या ये सब चीज? बहुत सारा डेटा है, इसको एनालाइज करके क्रिस्प तरीके से इंफॉर्मेशन लीडरशिप को देना है, so that the leader can take an informed decision. कई बार decisions गलत इसलिए होती है क्योंकि हमारे पास information नहीं होता. So these e-governance mechanisms that we have in place, be it related to administration, be it related to finance and accounts, be it related to student admission and support and examination, it should cover these broadly 4 areas. आपकी जो भी काम होता है यूनिवर्सिटी में, it will come under either one of these heads, right? So we need to have information, we need to have softwares, we need to have some kind of technology support for each of these, and the university has to indicate whether it has taken some initiatives in all these areas, one of those areas, 2 of those areas, 3 of those areas, right? It has to indicate that, and it has to provide data. Now, this is a quantitative metric. ये कहना कि हम ये किया है काफी नहीं है, आपको डेटा प्रोवाइड करना पड़ेगा कि किस तरीके से आपने इसको किया है. If you have a knowledge portal, तो कहाँ से लिया है, vendor कौन है, or what is the year of implementation, and if your university has a document on e-governance, you need to upload that document as well. Moving on, for example, when it comes to administration, now you need to provide screenshots. आपको screenshot provide करना है इन सब चीजों का. जैसे administration को आसान करने के लिए student data management हो जाए, या फिर leave management और attendance monitoring, feedback system for faculty. इन सब के लिए अगर हम paper और pen तरीके से करने लगे, तो the number of students that we have in a university उसको consider करते हुए, it will take us ages. And the top management and people in holding positions do not have that kind of time to go through all of that. So can we have everything simplified? So these things become more efficient, right? Student admission and support. Student wants to be able to come to your website and have a clear-cut portal through which he can provide whatever information you need, and he can also get whatever information he needs about the programs being offered over there in your university. Knowledge portal for students for monitoring their attendance and to view their syllabus or their course plan, marks कितने मिले मुझे, तो ये सारी चीजें देखने के लिए क्या बच्चे के पास कोई support mechanism है? The library management system, that e-resources that is available to students. When it comes to finance and accounts, do you have software like Tally or maybe some other software in your university? And one very important component is examinations related, जो भी होता है, उसके लिए what do you have in terms of systems in place? Gone are the times when people would conduct examinations in any which manner you wanted. अब जैसे हमारे यहाँ पे we have a system wherein अगर end semester examination हमारा May में है, तो हम January से we open the portal for the faculty to start feeding in questions into the question bank. उस क्वेश्चन बैंक में से क्वेश्चंस निकाले जाएंगे randomly by the office of examination. So if I am teaching a subject, I have no clue what questions are going to come in the examination. This is done to ensure total and to negate the whole process. Every student has a fair chance of attempting the examination. So how can we? उसमें भी काफी चीजें हैं. जैसे हमारी question bank entry में, when we are entering the questions, we are supposed to enter the questions or frame the questions keeping Bloom's taxonomy in mind. Revise Bloom's taxonomy. So what is this? What is that? नहीं पूछ सकते अभी हम. We will have to ask, enumerate this or describe this, analyze this, critically examine this. The way we frame the questions is also being controlled by the software. Now, the minute I say, what is this? It will throw a red light at me and say, no, please rephrase your question. You can't ask it in this manner. So using revised Bloom's taxonomy, the software is forcing me to put in 2 simple questions or 4 simple questions, 2 medium type questions and 1 complex question. The question paper pattern is decided in such a way that it addresses the needs of your below average learners, and your above average learners, your advanced learners as well. So all this thing is taken care of by the system. If as a faculty, if I had to individually do this for each of my courses that I'm teaching, it would have been extremely difficult. But now I have a system which takes care of all of these things, right? The question paper is generated, hall ticket is auto-generated in the system. The minute you clear all your dues, your hall ticket comes to you. Marks entry, marks card, sheet generation, all of this is taken care of by software. This is a snapshot of the knowledge portal that is available for faculty. So as the head of the School of Business and Management for UG courses, for example, I can see who was taught how much, कितने सेशंस किस टीचर ने लिया है, स्टूडेंट्स कौन लेट आ रहे हैं क्लास में, कौन से सब्जेक्ट का क्वेश्चंस कवर्ड नहीं है, किसको कितने मार्क्स मिले हैं, CIA progression, right? What is the progression of marks? Who are the advanced learners? Who are the slow learners? All these things I get to know. I have various report menus available over there, and using these reports, I get data on my fingertips, which helps me take important decisions. This is the library portal that we have. Similar portal is there for students as well. So you have numerous resources. Now this I've taken again from St. Xavier's College website. You have to have, it's not just enough to have those things, but you have to have documentary evidence. कहते हैं ना, और जब हम बैंक में काम करते थे तो हम हमेशा एम्प्लॉयज को कहते थे कि आपने किया होगा, आपने पैसे दिया होगा, बट जब तक आप वाउचर नहीं साइन है, then you have not done it. Unless there is documentation, you have not, there is no proof that it is done. So you need to have evidence in terms of the expenditure, actual expenditure that you have incurred year on year for the last 5 years on those 4 areas of operations. And it has to be supported with your audit report as well. Now, moving on to 6.3, which is about faculty empowerment strategies. आपके पास vision है, mission भी है, strategic plan भी आ गया, and you have your roles and responsibilities clarified. You have everything in place. But if you don't empower your people, nothing is going to happen anywhere. Empowering your staff is the starting point of success. And how does this empowerment happen? This empowerment has to happen by leadership. Leaders have to empower them. How can you empower them? By bringing in first, one of the first metrics that is used to measure this faculty empowerment is to see what are the feedback mechanisms in place. What are the promotional avenues that are available? Welfare measures क्या है आपके university के? आप क्या क्या करते हो for the benefit of teaching and non-teaching staff, right? The second metric is what is the financial support that has been provided for teachers for attending workshops and conferences. कई बार ये होता है कि आप करना चाहते हो and you want to take membership to a professional body. Some universities do not encourage that, but NAAC gives you points for it. You have to empower your employees. You're not spending money on your faculty and making them better. Ultimately, it will give you, I'm sorry to say these kind of words, customer service improves when your employees are better. And ultimately here our customer is a student, and the service to the student will improve if you empower your faculty. Average number of professional development, that is PDPs and ATPs. What is the professional development programs and administrative development programs that the institution has organized. Now, and the fourth one is total FDPs that your teachers have undergone. Now, one thing that needs to be borne in mind, which I'll come to again later on, is wherever we are measuring average percentage of teachers who have been provided with support, there the focus is on coverage. एक faculty 10 FDP attend कर ले, बाकी सब बैठे हैं. That will not give you points. It is the average percentage of teachers. The more number of teachers, चाहे सारे एक ही attend करें, but सबको attend करना है, तभी आपको points मिलेगा. अगर एक 10 attend करेगा, तो एक ही point मिलेगा वहां पर. So the focus is to ensure that आपके ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा faculty को इन चीजों का benefit मिले. That is why NAAC says that I will give you only 1 point for one faculty for one type of program. एक ही जन जाके सारे attend करे, that is an indication of some kind of a biasness that is there. Again, as far as this metric is concerned, 6.3.1, you have to clearly define what are the welfare measures in place. अब जैसे काफी सारे, and I'm sure almost every university has this in place. मुझे यहाँ पे ज़्यादा कुछ बताने की शायद ज़रूरत ही नहीं है, क्योंकि I'm 100% sure that most universities would have a lot of things. जैसे हमारे यहाँ पे group insurance है, canteens में we get things at subsidized rates. जहाँ पे let's assume somebody is paying 80 rupees, a regular person, we get the same for 50. The lunch coupons that we get, right? Provident fund, accommodation facility. Every time a new faculty joins in from another state, for the first month or two, till he finds accommodation, our university provides guest house accommodation to the faculty, so they can stay within the campus itself, right? And a very comfortable accommodation. Transportation facility. Our teachers travel to and forth from the university in the college buses without obviously paying anything, because that is considered to be a benefit that is being given to the teachers. Recently, we conducted a felicitation ceremony wherein whoever had received any kind of an achievement, we acknowledged that achievement and gave away certificates and some mementos. So that is felicitation on achievement. Financial literacy. हमारे यहाँ पे जो support staff है, उनके लिए the commerce department, sometimes the management department, we conduct very often in tandem with certain banks, financial literacy workshops for them. How can they save a little money? What are the various government schemes जिसका वो फायदा उठा सकते हैं? तो ये सारे चीजें बताई जाती है for non-teaching staff also. We have a system of known as gratitude day. जिस दिन हम सारे आकर के, all the students come together, they sing for the non-teaching staff, चाहे वो security guard हो या कोई भी woman. They basically to encourage them and to express gratitude for them. So these are some of the welfare measures that we have in place. This is a snapshot of the group insurance plan that we have here in Christ University for all the employees. And this is of another university wherein they provide financial assistance to the children of non-teaching staff. That is there even in our university. So that you help and you also get benefit out of it in terms of points for your NAAC, right? So that is also a welfare measure that is implemented. The second metric is the average percentage of teachers who have been provided financial support to attend conferences and workshops, and also as fees for professional bodies during the last 5 years. Now, uh, as I was saying, wherever we talk of average number of teachers, we have to always keep in mind that here it is not about it is good. More and more teachers should attend more and more workshops and conferences and become members of professional bodies. But the point is, it should not be that only a selected few get all those opportunities and the others don't. To minimize the possibility of that and to ensure that maximum people are involved in this process, हम कोशिश इसमें metric ऐसा बना है कि you will get credit only for one single credit for one person attending one kind of a program. एक जन 10 attend करेगा, you don't get credit for that, right? So this is example of our university, जैसे travel grant दिया गया, and some people went even abroad. Virginia Commonwealth University गया था, कोई Texas University में गया था, or someone attended a UP fellowship program. So what are the expenses there, and the various conferences, workshops, or this ones that they were part of, right? Again, documentation. Everything documentation. You need to have details of the expenses that you have incurred on that. 6.3.3 is the average number of PDPs and ATPs that we conduct for both teaching and non-teaching staff, right? So what are the details that needs to be captured? हमें ये capture करना है कि ये जो PDP हमने organize किया, इसका title क्या है, चाहे वो teaching staff के लिए हो या non-teaching staff के लिए हो, ये कब हुआ था, and reports, event reports have to be there. And one additional thing is of late, for any kind of photographs of events, it has to be, and I'm sure सबको पता होगा ये चीज. आजकल तो ये हो गया है कि फैमिली के साथ भी बाहर जाओ तो फोटोग्राफ लो तो जियोटैग फोटो ही लेते बनता है. So getting geotag photos in place is very, very important. It is not enough to just have photographs, but you have apps which will help you click pictures which are geotagged, which will say the specific location, time where this picture was taken. This is also extremely important henceforth. Now, this is again a screenshot of one of the universities that provided information year on year, 5 years. What are the total number of professional development or ATP programs that they have conducted? Of these professional development programs or administrative development programs can be on of various types. For example, this university is conducting, it conducted a workshop on data management for its non-teaching staff. We also conduct several workshops, even wellness workshops for non-teaching staff and for teaching staffs, right? Anything to help them develop professionally. What are the programs that we conduct? Now, this university conducted a program on role of a teacher and academic excellence, UGC sponsored national seminar, conferences, and all of these. But again, event ka poster, report, attendance sheet, geotag photos must. कई बार ये होता है कि हम करते हैं बट उसको हम डॉक्यूमेंट नहीं कर पाते, एंड देन लास्ट मिनट वी ट्राई टू फैब्रिकेट दोस डॉक्यूमेंट्स. वी आर नॉट डूइंग एनीथिंग रॉन्ग पर से, देखा जाए तो हमने किया था वो इवेंट, बस ये है कि उस टाइम पे हमने उसको अच्छे तरीके से डॉक्यूमेंट नहीं किया, एंड देन वी गो बैक एंड वी ट्राई एंड डॉक्यूमेंट इट लेटर ऑन, व्हिच क्रिएट्स लॉट्स ऑफ प्रॉब्लम्स. इट इज बेटर दैट everyone we have a checklist, and when we plan an event we work with the checklist कि इस event में ये चीज तो होना ही है. तो feedback form immediately after the event, there has to be a feedback that is taken from the participants as well. The next metric is 6.3.4, which is the average number of FTPs that are attended by the faculty before teaching and non-teaching. We are talking of induction programs, orientation programs, refresher course, short-term course. Now, of late, the one thing that I hear very often whenever we discuss about FTPs is that we need to have FTPs, and these FTPs should be for a minimum period of 7 days. In fact, when I was looking at your workshop brochure and this one also, I saw it said 5-day workshop on NAAC. So even if what we did recently is when we conducted a FDP on Power BI to obviously develop our staff, our teaching staff, we conducted a 7-day workshop, which included Sundays as well. Now, in that Sunday, what we did is we provided asynchronous assignments wherein whatever we had learned in Power BI the previous day on Saturday, we had assignments for faculty which they had to complete on Sunday on their own. It was self-learning that happened on Sunday. So that also gets counted for, and you get more points if it is a 7-day workshop, right? E-copies of certificates, list of the teachers who have participated, have the reports in place, have the geotag photographs in place, and of them. Even if we tell our faculty, if you go attend a program, even if it is an online program, don't forget to take a screenshot of that online program for documentary evidence purposes, right? This is, for example, the certificate that was given to a faculty for having engaged in a 4-week refresher course. If you see most of these, if you go to most of the websites, I mean, I keep visiting a lot of other university websites because we need to benchmark, we need to learn from each other. Nobody knows everything. See, when I sit with IQAC, मुझे वही feeling आती है जब मैं research methodology के साथ बैठती हूँ as a subject. ऐसा लगता है कि थोड़ा बहुत आता है लेकिन बहुत कुछ नहीं आता. Research is again like that. When you dive into it, you think you know something, but then more you dive into it, you realize you don't know a lot of things. When it comes to audit in institutions also, it is the same. Every time we submit something, we get to know something new from the central team, from the people who come for the audit, right? ये ऐसा नहीं वैसा होना चाहिए. So we visit the websites of other universities also to see what is it that they do. We get ideas from there as well as to what kind of workshops our people should attend, what kind of seminars or conferences they need to attend, what kind of orientation programs can be organized, what kind of induction programs can be organized. So we get fair enough idea about all these things. For example, another university website I found this information, right? Various, again, FDP programs that faculty attended, and one is on R programming, another is on multivariate data analysis, another is on sociology. So all varied different kinds of programs. With the permission of the organizers, may I take just a 15 seconds break? I just need to drink some water.
Yes, ma'am.
A small break. Thank you. Thank you.
सभी प्रतिभागियों को सूचित किया जाता है कि मैडम ने अभी 5 मिनट का ब्रेक लिया हुआ है. सो बी विद अस. और अभी आप सभी लोगों से पुनः अनुरोध है कि अपने चैट बॉक्स में, जैसा मैंने पहले भी कई बार अनाउंस किया है, कि आपकी कोई क्वेरी हो तो उसे जरूर चैट बॉक्स में लिखें. आप लोग चैट बॉक्स में अभिवादन और कमेंट्स तो लिख रहे हैं लेकिन प्रश्न नहीं लिख रहे हैं. तो आपसे पुनः विनम्र अनुरोध है कि प्रश्न लिखें, अपना नाम, अपना प्रश्न, जिसमें आपके संस्थान का नाम, एफिलिएशन और ईमेल आईडी हो, जिससे कि हम इन सभी प्रश्नों का समाधान अपनी एक्सपर्ट टीम द्वारा कल यानी कार्यशाला के अंतिम दिन हम अपने ओपन फोरम में कर सकें, जो कि शाम को 3 से 5 बजे के सेशन में होगा. और तभी आपकी सक्रिय सहभागिता प्रमाणित होगी कि आप इस कार्यशाला को बहुत ही गंभीरता से ले रहे हैं. तो ये आपसे एक विनम्र अनुरोध है. आज के इस चौथे दिन, जो कि हमारी कार्यशाला का चौथा दिन है, प्रथम सत्र में आप डॉक्टर जीन पॉलोस को सुन रहे हैं. उसके बाद जो हमारा दूसरा सत्र होगा वो 3 से 5 बजे का होगा. उसमें हमारे इंस्टीट्यूट फॉर एक्सीलेंस इन हायर एजुकेशन IEAT भोपाल के डायरेक्टर महोदय आपके साथ हमारे जुड़ेंगे, जिनका नाम डॉक्टर प्रज्ञेश अग्रवाल है. वो क्राइटेरिया 7 पर हम चर्चा करेंगे, जो कि इंस्टीट्यूशनल वैल्यूज एंड बेस्ट प्रैक्टिसेस पर आधारित है. तो उस वक्त भी आप सक्रिय रूप से वहां जुड़े, लिंक वही रहेगी. चैट बॉक्स का अनुरोध पुनः आप सभी से, और जिससे कि हम ओपन फोरम में कल इन प्रश्नों का समाधान कर सकें. पहले भी आपको सूचित किया जा चुका है कि आपको एक कार्यक्रम के अंत में शाम को 5 बजे कल एक ऑनलाइन टेस्ट देना होगा, जो इन्हीं 7 क्राइटेरिया पर आधारित है। एक सामान्य तरीके की प्रश्नावली होगी, ऑब्जेक्टिव टाइप, बहुत ज्यादा कठिन नहीं होगी, लेकिन आपको उसमें भाग लेना है और न्यूनतम 60% अंक आपको प्राप्त करने होंगे। 80% उपस्थिति के अतिरिक्त तभी आपको प्रमाण पत्र मिलेगा। मुझे आशा है कि आप सभी इन चीजों से अवगत होंगे और गंभीरता से ध्यान देंगे इस पर।
Would you want me to give an extended break, ma'am? Maybe a minute
Yes,
or more
ma'am.
to
You
the
can go
participants
ahead.
as well, and then maybe reconvene if somebody wants to just take a quick minute break. They can move around and come back and sit. Because again, there's research that says that one should not remain seated for a very long time. It affects the blood flow to the veins, through the veins.
Yes,
But
we can understand, ma'am. Yes.
I am okay. I'm ready to go. So whenever
So
you
please
ask
go
me to,
ahead,
I'll
ma'am. Please go
start
ahead.
again.
Please go ahead.
My comments? Okay. Thank you. I guess it is when we attend these kind of sessions that we really realize what our students go through when they are, seated in the classrooms. In our case, our sessions begin at 8:30 and they end at 3:30. So they are fixed to a chair all the time. So I guess that's when we realize how they must be feeling. Anyways, coming back to our session, we have dealt with 3 indicators. The first one was about the vision and mission, about the leadership defining the vision and mission. The second was about your strategy. How do you go about achieving those vision and mission with your long-term plans? The third, not just about having plans, but also deployment of those plans or implementation of those plans. And the third component was related to having people, having people who empowering those people to ensure that your plans are actually implemented. If you don't have the right kind of people, no plans will work, right? And the fourth indicator, it's a natural progression of sorts, if you see, is all about money. If there is no money, if there is no financial resources at our end, we will not have the flexibility that we wanted. If I go to my management and say I want a simulation lab, if I go and say I want to set up a finance lab, I want to tie up with NSC, maybe I want my students to be able to have hands-on training on algorithmic trading and all of those things, then if those resources are not there, then it becomes difficult. Now, having said that, universities and colleges should not try and depend only on fees. And this is wherein we are forced to think as to where the money is coming in from. And to a large extent, I think uh, individual faculties can also contribute in terms of trying to get in funds. But having said that, we have to be very clear that when we talk of funds and grants over here, we are referring to funds and grants of a different kind. We are not referring to the funds and grants that are covered in criteria 3 and 5, which is related to your research and your student support and all of that. We are not concerned with that. Here, we are talking of other kinds of funds and grants, but we need resources. We need money into our university. We should promote, faculty and the management should apply for funds and grants. There are enough and more available. Most of the time, we don't even apply for that. So criteria 6.4 is all about management of financial resources. How do we mobilize those resources? Where do we get the money from? And once we get the money, how do we manage that money? How do we account for that money? I'm sure those people who work on IQAC and NAAC on a regular basis and who have dealt with those committees who who visit, or those teams who come to visit the campus would know that there would be this one guy who would be there in that team who would literally tear you apart and while going through your financial documents. ये दिखा दो, वो दिखा दो, इसका proof कहाँ है, उसका proof कहाँ है. So it becomes very important to have a thorough, strong audit mechanism in place. उनको दिखाने से पहले खुद तो अच्छे से देखना जरूरी है. That is where an internal audit comes into the picture. So let's take it step by step. Under criteria 6. Under criteria 6, indicator 6.5, 6.4, the first metric are what are the institutional strategies for mobilization of funds and optimal utilization of resources, which has 4 points, followed by what kind of funds or grants are you getting from government bodies, specifically government bodies, for development and maintenance of infrastructure. So we are referring to those kind of funds over here. Not related to research grants specifically, but here it is for development of infrastructure. And then again, what are the sources of funds from non-government bodies, individuals, and philanthropists? Now, some of us might not have given this much thought, but it is quite possible that we can get funding provided we approach them. The last one is, once you get the money, first, what is your strategy for getting the money? That is the first metric. The second and third metric is, what are your sources? From where will you get that money? And how much of it have you got from government sources and from non-government sources? And the final thing is, once you've got the money, how are you going to monitor it? What are your mechanisms in place to monitor how that money is being utilized? So audit, financial audit, both internal and external audit. So data pertaining to this needs to be captured in 6.4.4. Now moving on, 6.4.1 is again a descriptive statement which we provide. So it is basically a qualitative metric, but then we also need to provide supporting documents and also provide additional information wherever it is necessary. Now, the first one, as I said, is wherein you describe what is your strategy as an organization for mobilization of funds and for optimum utilization of those funds. Now, when you give this description, your description of this strategy that you have, it should cover everything. It should cover what are your priority areas that you've identified, जिसके लिए आपको funds चाहिए. आपको ये भी बताना है कि sources आपकी क्या होंगी, right? This is like providing the overview. आपके research paper का abstract जैसा है. This is everything, a snapshot of it, right? ये आपके sponsors से contributions क्या होंगे, आपके sources, fees, student fees से कितना होगा, या government support क्या expect कर रहे हो, या grants, aids and all these things, right? So what are the list of sources? What are the details of the financial committees that you have in place? For example, हमारे यहाँ पे even जो fee structure है, वो decision में that is taken by a finance committee that is constituted centrally, and that takes the decision for all the courses across all the 5 campuses that we have. So there is a finance committee that is constituted just to look into the fee structure, which will decide how much, if at all, there has to be an increment in the fee amount that is to be collected from the students. So details of other finance committees in place for overseeing such financial decisions, details of the processes, how is a voucher, how is the decision regarding purchasing taken? How is the decision regarding expenditure taken? If there is an expense, if there is a proposed expense, what is the process, who needs to approve before that amount gets credited to your account? What is the process of preparation of budget? Here in our university, as far as budget preparation is concerned, it's a highly decentralized process. It comes from bottom upwards. Individual faculties are also involved in the budget preparation process. The entire department sits together. We submit our budget for the School of Business and Management, let's assume. Then we get a similar budget from the School of Commerce, Finance and Accountancy, from the School of Law, from the School of Humanities and Social Sciences. So we get all these budgets, and then that is put together by the central team in the campus, and then that is submitted to the to the central campus, which then compiles all the data from all the 5 campuses pertaining to manpower budget, pertaining to infrastructure related budget. That's how it works over here. So it is kind of decentralized. There is a lot of involvement of individual faculty as well for the budget preparation process. What are the procedures that you have in place for monitoring the spending that is involved, be it by individual faculty, by anyone? All these things, there has to be clear cut. If I call in, let's say guest lecture, or if I bring in some additional infrastructure, or if I want, for example, recently we set up a fintech lab in our campus specifically for the School of Business and Management. So there was a detailed process through which we had to put in our requirement, and it had to get approved by at multiple levels, after which we got the funding, and that is also being constantly monitored, right? So we have a monitoring system in place to show how we have used those funds. Now, this is a snapshot of Loyola College and how they have captured all the information related to the different sources of funds that, the way their funding happens. If you have the time at any given point of time, you can go through all of this. Now, once you have a clear strategy as to from where your money is going to come, how it will get accounted for, and all of that, you go into the details and provide data pertaining to that. There in 6.4.1, you only described it qualitatively. In 6.4.2, you will provide the specific quantitative metrics as to what is the name of the funding agency, how much fund did you receive, and you have to provide supporting documents also for the same. And I thought the best way to deal with this is to, probably look at what other people have done. For example, this is one university in Tamil Nadu, right? And if you look at the funding that they have received, the grants that they have received, it is for a variety of reasons. One, it is for setting up a camping center. One fund they have received from the Youth Welfare and Sports Development department. This is towards construction of canteen building in the sports university. One, there is a fund related to linking road. In fact, recently in our university as well, we have also applied for funding for working on the link road from the highway till our campus, because our campus is kind of in a remote area comparatively, not very remote, but then the approach road is in a very bad shape, and that causes a lot of inconvenience to all the stakeholders. So if we have taken it up on ourselves, we have applied for that particular funding from the local state government, and we are looking forward, we are quite hopeful that we'll get it, because we want to improve the infrastructure around the campus as well, because we have always seen that when we develop a university, we are not just developing a university. When Bangalore campus started, it was a small campus and there was hardly anything around it. But now the area around it, there are so many paying guests, there are so many hotels, there's the entire infrastructure around, and people and community around also get employment. So that is one additional objective that we look at when we look at developing the infrastructure, not just inside the campus, but even around the university. So we get grants for that as well. We get funding for that as well. Over here, if you see, even this university, they have received some funding for providing link roads to the university, right? For procurement of furniture. So all of this is everything else except what is mentioned in your criteria 3 and criteria 5. It is not anything to do with student progression or support. It is not anything to do with research funding and grants. It is not MDP that you've conducted and made money. It is not FDP that you've maybe organized and made money, or it's not consultancy. It is not research basically, but it is related to funding and grants or sources of funds from government bodies for developing the infrastructure of the university. I want to improve my IT lab. I can apply for funds. I want to improve my library resources. I can apply for funds. I want to improve the sporting equipment of my university. I can apply. So there are various aspects in terms of infrastructural requirements for which one can apply and get benefits of. Again, documentation. So this university has provided information about what all kinds of funds they have got, and also the details of the order that was passed when that funding was given to them or that grant was released to them. So this is also extremely important. Moving on to the next metric, which is funds received from non-government bodies. Government bodies so hai hi, but of late there is also this thing wherein because of this corporate social responsibility rules, CSR की जो mandate है कि organizations को 2% spend करना ही करना है on CSR related activities. It is especially if you have a certain net worth of above a certain amount, you are expected to spend. So in this context, several corporates are also interested in collaborating and investing in certain areas. जैसे हमने कुछ टाइम पहले जब strategic plan के बारे में बात कर रहे थे, हमने देखा कि वो नासिक यूनिवर्सिटी में कैसे टाटा पावर के साथ इन्होंने टाई अप करके महाराष्ट्र गवर्नमेंट से भी सब्सिडी लेके दे सेट अप अ पावर प्लांट, सोलर पावर प्लांट, राइट? Similarly, universities can look towards collaborating with not just government bodies but non-government bodies as well, and with individuals. You have Azim Premji Foundation, you have lots of even individuals who are interested in philanthropic work, right? I remember even not just in universities, even at school level, you set up several sponsorships, you set up several funds, trusts are set up in the names of alumni or students, and they are willing to provide support for certain developmental activities, right? So we can approach them as well. Again, the point here is these are donations or fundings or grants that we are getting from elsewhere, which is not covered under criteria 3 and criteria 5. Yet another example, this is one university that collaborated with or that got funding from Sri Ratan Tata Trust. And what did they use the money for? They used it for setting up the science laboratory equipment, for upgrading their science laboratory equipment, right? So there are plenty and more such examples. Another, again, the Sri Ratan Tata Trust invested in digitization and conservation of the Blatter Herbarium. Now, this is again related to St. Xavier's College. This is their research cell, and they got some money from there. But then ultimately, it is for developing the infrastructure of that particular cell, right? So, like the science laboratory equipment, it is basic infrastructure development, and that is why it gets covered under this particular metric. And the funding here is not from government body, it is from non-government body. The final aspect in 6.4 criteria, key indicator, is how does your institution or your university or your college, whatever it may be, how do you conduct internal and external financial audits? How often do you do it and how do you do it? Now, this is a qualitative metric again. It is not data centric. You're basically expected to provide a descriptive information about how this internal audit is taken up. For example, in a certain institution, internal audit is taken up only by people who are appointed within the university by people in the top management. So you have an internal auditor. There is no specific requirement that he or she has to be a chartered accountant or stuff like that. It varies. But then when it comes to external audit, and that's statutory audit, and it has to, you need a certified chartered accountant for conducting that kind of an audit. So internal is over which you have, which is done internally, and external audit is largely the statutory audit that is taken up, which is mandatory, right? Now, this is the example of a university which has described how they are. This is their descriptive statement. I told you right earlier, in 500 words, you need to describe how you plan to manage the mobilization of resources, and all of that is happening fine, but how do you plan to monitor it? So this is how one university has described. It says, since its inception, the college strictly adheres to statutory requirements for audit and accounting practices. A lot of English there. I'll just skip that and maybe focus on only the important points. So here it says that they have internal audit and that they have external audit. Then they have described the process that they have in place for purchases, how the daily purchases register is maintained, how it is approved, the indents need to be approved by the faculty of the department and the HOD of the department, and then how payment is made on a priority basis, and that decision how it is taken, right? Uh, how the first level check is done internally, so that even in a bank for that matter, we have internal audit first. That is your way of preparing for the external audit before the external audit happens, right? So how on a weekly basis or monthly basis or fortnightly basis or quarterly basis, you have someone designated to go through your internal documents to see if everything is in place or not. So this is how one university has described under criteria 6.4.4 in the website. They have provided this information that this is how we go about it. So we need to provide a descriptive statement, and that descriptive statement should cover everything. But even in descriptive metrics, we need to provide documentary evidence. Maybe we are not providing data per se, but we provide documentary evidence. Like this university that gave that descriptive statement has provided an internal audit report as an attachment, which has all these things. Like what were the major observations of the internal audit committee related to financial audit, and what in each of these areas, in the journal entries, in the fee receipts, in indirect income, in personal records. They went through everything and they have documented in detail what are the areas of concern or what were their observations. And these observations are your way of improving upon your processes before the actual external audit happens. So this is also attached as a documentary evidence. Now, moving on to the final indicator of this sixth criteria, which is internal quality assurance system. हर यूनिवर्सिटी में मुझे लगता है कि अगर कोई किसी से डरता है सबसे ज्यादा तो वो IQAC coordinator से है, because if the IQAC coordinator calls you, somehow the assumption is that you are in trouble. But I think the IQAC is the team that is working relentlessly in every university. They go beyond their call of duty to ensure that the university is prepared for the NAAC audit. And this, what are your systems in place for internal quality assurance? This has to be documented both qualitatively and quantitatively through this metric, right? 6.5, internal quality assurance system. Now, under this metric, again, we have, under this specific criteria or indicator, we have three metrics. The first one, 6.5.1, is details about your IQAC. आपकी IQAC क्या करती है, कैसे constitute किया गया है, कब से है, क्या, what are the various activities that they undertake, right? A descriptive kind of information about what IQAC is in your institution. IQAC generally is headed by the principal itself and or the head of the institution, and then we have the IQAC coordinator for the entire campus as far as we are concerned, and then we have individual faculty members, IQAC representatives or coordinators for every department who are part of the IQAC team. And then within each department, every single criteria, we have a person responsible. This is how we work. Criteria 1, we have one focal point. Criteria 2, we have another focal point. We have just, it is distributed amongst 7 people who in turn will get, they will drive all those aspects related to their respective criteria within the department. This is how we work. So right from the bottom, every faculty is somewhere associated with, if there is an event that has happened and it is available in the academic calendar, we have an academic calendar, that if it is related to, let's say, student related to some institutional best practices, we have conducted a research symposium. One of the best practices that we claim of our university is emphasis on research, and not just among faculty but among students. So even today, right now, there is a research symposium happening in the management department for the postgraduate students, wherein in front of an external panel, we are presenting their research work, taking feedback, hoping to improve upon it. And it is mandatory that all these students, every single student, has to get their paper published in a quality research journal. So the IQAC coordinator and the members of the team within the team, they are quite aware that there is a symposium. The minute the symposium is over, within 2 days, if the report doesn't come, if it is not uploaded in the event folder, we will go after those people. कि feedback report कहाँ पे है, poster कहाँ पे है, where is this, where is that. They drive this, they collect information. So this is how our IQAC team is very proactive. They will not wait for the report to come to them. They'll go after the team to get the report. They are constantly, they have a constant eye कि university में क्या events हो रहे, क्या activities हो रहे, and जब event report also, we have a column in that report which says that this event can be mapped to which criteria. तो जो भी इवेंट कंडक्ट कर रहा है वो इवेंट कंडक्ट करते वक्त ही उसको आइडेंटिफाई करना है कि इस इवेंट का ऑब्जेक्टिव या आउटकम किसके साथ मैपिंग किया जा सकता है. ये 2 के साथ कर सकते हैं क्या, 3 के साथ कर सकते हैं क्या, 4, 5, 6, 7 किसके साथ किया जा सकता है. स्पेसिफिकली 6.5.1 और 6.5.2 और 6.3 point something, whatever it is, it has to be identified and mentioned in the event report itself. So the minute the report gets updated over there, IQAC team comes into the picture, they work on it and they look at it and say immediately what is there, what is not there, what more needs to be provided. That is how proactive the IQAC cell has to be in any university. If we want to have a very strong, focus on quality. The second aspect is what are the measures that have been adopted by the university in respect to IQAC. For example, do you have an academic administrative audit, details about conferences, seminars, workshop quality? What are the collaborative quality initiatives that you have taken up? What are the orientation programs on quality issues for teachers and students? Have you participated in NIRF ranking, basically, right? And have you also applied for other kind of audits like an ISO or NBA in your university? So you have to indicate whether you have done all 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 or none. Basically, you need to indicate in this particular metric how much your institution has adopted in each of these areas, right? In each of these domains. The final metric is incremental improvements that have been made in the preceding 5 years, if it is your first cycle. But if it is a second or a subsequent cycle, then post the previous audit, what are the additional initiatives that you have brought in to improve quality measures? So 6.5.1, as I said initially, is basically a qualitative metric. It is a descriptive statement that you provide, but again, wherever it is qualitative, even there we need to provide the additional data, right? For example, one of the institutes has identified that the 2 examples of best practices that the institution has developed after the IQAC's initiatives. One, they applied for ISO certification, and this is an outcome of the efforts of the IQAC cell. And 2, they said they have implemented successfully modern technology. वो अपने institute में ICT या initiate कर पाए because of the efforts of IQAC, and ये जो process है उसके बाद ये शुरू हुआ है. So these are some of the 2 practices, and this is the requirement. जब आप describe करते हो कि आपने क्या किया है in terms of strategies for development of the institute, you have to be very specific. So IQAC demands that you write 2 practices at least, right, of what you have done. And for example, these people have identified that they have started off the process for ISO certification, and they are also implementing modern technology. Now, this is an engineering college in UP. In fact, to be more specific, it is in Ghaziabad. This engineering college has described, right, how that descriptive statement, how IQAC meets every quarter, how they have subcommittees, that subcommittee is responsible for implementation of the IQAC guidelines, and the subcommittee gives feedback to IQAC, which then implements various things on that. IQAC is also responsible for conducting various kinds of activities. We come to that in the next metric, right? And ultimately, ultimately how IQAC is responsible for developing a culture of quality in the university. Now, moving on to the next metric, which is the quantitative metric. So as soon as we say quantitative metric, we need to have data. We need to have numbers. How many AQARs have been prepared and submitted? Now, what is an AQAR? It is Annual Quality Assurance Report. So how many annual quality assurance reports have been prepared and submitted, and whether an administrative and academic audit is done, how often is it done, what is the quality of workshops, and as I said, whether you have applied for ISO or MPA petition and all of that, right? So data pertaining to all these things has to be captured and they have to be presented. For example, one of the universities has presented this in their website, right? In the last, from 2014-15 to 2018-19, whether they have prepared AQARs or no, whether they have done academic administrative audit or no, whether they have participated in NIRF or not, whether they have gone in for ISO certification, whether they have gone for NPA certification. So you need to provide those details for the last 5 years. This is mandatory for this particular parameter. Moving on to the last metric, and I'm sure you must be breathing a sigh of relief. आपको बहुत अच्छा लग रहा होगा कि finally मैंने last slide बोला. When we are talking of the last metric, we are talking of what are the incremental improvements. Now, when we talk of innovation and creativity, I'm sure there must be a few people here who know that there are two kinds of innovation. Ultimately, जब हम quality बढ़ा रहे हैं तो हम क्या कर रहे हैं, हम कुछ नया लेके आ रहे हैं, कुछ बेहतर चीज लेके आ रहे हैं. अब वो नयापन लाने में दो तरीके हैं. We can either bring in radical changes कि हमने एकदम सब कुछ change कर दिया, but the better and stable way of bringing about change, be it in quality or any other measure, is an incremental measure. Incremental is small step-by-step measures that we have taken. It is, every drop that contributes to making an ocean. So what are those small drops that have contributed to making your ocean of quality, right? In the last 5 years, what are those incremental improvements that you have made? Again, it is a qualitative metric, so you need to provide descriptive data pertaining to that. Again, within less than 500 words. And इससे related जो भी आपकी documents है, ये आपको upload करना है, right? Now, this is a university in Andhra Pradesh. To be specific, ये गुंटूर में एक university है. In fact, I have a small leaning towards AP and Telangana because when I was in AP, it was only AP. There was no two states, right? So for me, it is still somewhere in my mind the same. तो मैंने जानबूझ के ही सही शायद मैंने वहां से भी एक डेटा लाने की कोशिश की है in front of you. Now they have almost this is recommendation number 3, the last one. That's a typo error. I have only captured 3, but वहाँ पे उनके website पे अगर आप जाके देखोगे, there are about 13-14 recommendations bare minimum जो उन्होंने implement किया है अपने university में to improve quality. Now, quality related to various aspects, related to infrastructure, related to faculty welfare measures. जैसे जो पहला recommendation है, that was pertaining to residential quarters for faculty and non-teaching staff members. In fact, हमारे university में भी of late there is a small discussion that is happening. It is in the recommendation stage. I really hope it gets implemented because जैसे हम सब जानते हैं, most of the universities, the teaching faculty are women. Nothing against the men over here, don't get me wrong, but somehow teaching and women, they seem to go together, right? Maybe it is always perceived to be that women probably make better teachers because of their patience and all of that. Again, I don't want to gender stereotype over here and generalize, but then we see more women in this profession. But not many universities have facilities which women need. There are a lot of women working in my campus who are new mothers, who have infants at home, 3-month-old, 6-month-old, 9-month-old. And you can imagine the emotional trauma that the mother undergoes when she has to leave her child of a year or 2 years. In fact, I know what that feeling is because I had myself taken a career break from banking because I wanted to be with my son, who was a year and a half at that point of time. This was several years back, or decades back, I suppose, right? university can provide an infrastructure. Our off-campus in Lavasa has a crèche facility within the campus to support such women. You can leave your young children there. They will be taken care of by professionals, and you can rest be assured, focus on your work. And you always have the liberty of going during lunch break and just peeping in and seeing if the child is fine. That's a big relief to a working mom. And this will also help improve the situation in our country. I'm sure all of you are aware that India sees the lowest, we are in the top 5 countries in the world when it comes to workforce participation of women. During the pandemic, the workforce participation of women in India went down from around, which was around 22%. It went down to around 16 or 17% also, I think, if I remember correctly. But it is somewhere around 20. That is, out of 100 women in India, only 20 of them are working. And why is the situation this bad? Because we are not able to provide the kind of support mechanism that women require, considering that they have 2 equally important responsibilities. It is not just work, they are equally responsible for their family, right? So this is a recommendation that was put forward by the team, and our university is currently working on it too, because we have space constraints. It's a small campus. But then our management is seriously looking at it, and we are working on it. Similarly, in this university, they worked on developing a residential quarters for faculty and non-teaching staff, better infrastructure for faculty members, cabins, the cabin size. You need some, if you expect faculty to produce 2 research papers, that to a Scopus index paper every academic year, you can't expect them to do that sitting in a staff room that has 50 other people screaming and shouting at the same time. You need to give them the kind of infrastructure wherein they can work in that kind of an environment and give you what you want, and give them also what they want. It's not just for the institution, but for their own personal development, but better infrastructure for faculty members, right? Upgrading the university science and instrumentation center. This was yet another recommendation number 3, in fact, that was given by the team. And after IQAC recommended it, they started working on that as well, right? So these are some of the examples that I thought I should bring forth from what I'm seeing here in my universities, and from what I have seen from my research on other universities as well, as far as IQAC is concerned. With that, all I'll say is I'm a learner, I'm a beginner myself, I'm learning along the way, and I hope that I too will have more opportunities. In fact, this is a wonderful initiative by the university to bring people on one platform so that we can, I have shared some of what the initiatives that Christ does here at Christ MPBOU University, Delhi NCR campus, and even other campuses. And I hope that more universities will provide such opportunities so that we'll hear about practical implementations of these, various programs, and we can maybe bring that to our own campus and implement it as well. Let's learn from each other and move forward. With that, I think I'll wind up the session with the permission of the organizers. Thank you very much for being such patient listeners. And I hope I was able to do justice to the task that was assigned to me. Back to the organizers. And let me also apologize for my video glitch. I have absolutely no idea why that happened, but I hope that did not affect the program in any which way. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thanks a bunch, ma'am. As Sterling K. Brown has quoted, always have an attitude of gratitude. As you too were talking about Gratitude Day for the employees in today's session, we here at Center for Internal Quality Assurance, SICA team of Madhya Pradesh Bhoj Open University, Bhopal, is indebted to you, ma'am, for such an intense and elaborative session filled with appropriate case studies. It was such an engrossing session of yours that it connected with all the intricacies of Criteria-6 of NAAC, apart from other notable inputs, especially mission and vision of the institutions. We look forward to you, ma'am. Again, thanks a lot. अब अपने प्रतिभागियों के लिए एक सूचना, आज का हमारा दूसरा सत्र, आज हमारी कार्यशाला का चतुर्थ दिवस है। दूसरा सत्र 3 बजे से आरंभ होगा, जिसमें इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ एक्सीलेंस फॉर हायर एजुकेशन IEHE भोपाल के डायरेक्टर डॉक्टर प्रगेश अग्रवाल सर अपना व्याख्यान देंगे, जो कि क्राइटेरिया 7 पर आधारित होगा। ये इंस्टीट्यूशनल वैल्यूज एंड बेस्ट प्रैक्टिसेस पर आधारित है। अब आपसे एक अनुरोध, मैंने आप सभी से कहा था कि चैट बॉक्स पे अपनी क्वेरीज जो आपके मन में है उसे लिखें। आपने क्वेरीज लिखी तो, लेकिन संबंधित क्वेरी आपको लिखनी है, क्योंकि ये हमारा NAAC पर आधारित कार्यशाला है। तो NAAC से संबंधित क्वेरी लिखी जाए, जिससे कि हम उसे कल अपने आखिरी दिन ओपन फोरम में विशेषज्ञों द्वारा ले सकें। इसके लिए आप, क्योंकि ये NAAC पर आधारित है, तो इस प्रकार का रिस्पॉन्स तभी होगा जब इस कार्यशाला का तभी औचित्य और आपकी गंभीरता सिद्ध होगी। 3 बजे हम फिर मिलते हैं। धन्यवाद।
You all once again have a wonderful day.